Hello, it's me, and by request, I'd like to go over a little bit more detail on how to deal with this last layer of the master pyramorphinx. So here's what I would do. In order for this to be lined up, and this is just one scenario, I'll go over some other scenarios, but basically these two of the same color have to be facing each other. You can visualize it more if I turn it like this. You can see that these are in and these are in as well. Obviously they're not coordinated right because this is wrong here, but basically they have to be facing each other. Now it follows the same rules of a 3x3 in terms of corners. Either all, edges. When I said corners I meant edges, in terms of edges. Either all edges are flipped or two edges are flipped, but you never have three edges are flipped, not with a 3x3. You just don't encounter that kind of parity. So we have to understand that concept with this. All I can say right now is that these edges here are in proper association with each other. So which one is flipped, which one is not flipped, maybe they're all flipped right, they just have to be rotated in. So what I would do in this situation, when you see both are appear to be facing each other, kind of kissing each other like this, is do the algorithm that rotates your edges around to see which one fits flush. Because the one that's right is going to fit flush to where it is. Obviously none of these are flush, but that's because they're not rotated around. So I'm going to arbitrarily pick one side, say over here, and I'm going to do the algorithm that rotates this around to see which one fits flush. This is truly a situation where you're just not going to be able to completely figure it out, so far as I know. So this is going to be an R move over here. This will be an F move over here, so you got to keep your orientation, which means this has to be an L. Somewhere over here. So basically all I'm going to be doing with this is an R move and a U move. So R, U, R-I, U, R, 2U, and RI. And let's just take a look what we have. Nothing is fitting flush where it's supposed to be yet, so we'll just do it again. RU, RIU, R, 2U, RI. So let's take a look what we got now. These two are fitting flush. So we can say these two are in. But look at these two. We thought we had no way of knowing if these two are in or not. Except, well, I guess maybe you could try to figure it out, but from my standpoint, I had no way of knowing. But what this appears to be is that these have to be flipped, because if these are fitting flush, these must also fit flush. But because they're not, these both must be flipped. They're just flipped the other way. So by doing this, I can tell these are correct. So it's like having these two that are correct, and these two would be incorrect because they're adjacent to each other. So the algorithm is like, this is kind of like an L formation, because they're two adjacent edges that are in, so that's like that L. And as you recall, you turn it over, hold it over here if this is your L, and do that algorithm. So this is going to be my F move over here, and this is going to be my R move, and this is going to be my U move. So try to keep your orientation, because that's going to screw you up more than anything else. So that's F, R, U, R, I, U, I, and Fi. So what that did is that made a line. So I know that this is in, and this is in. This is now out, but I can tell that because it's facing the same way. But I know this is in, it's fitting flush, and this is out. Now if you started off like this, let's say this is how you started off, then you'd say, okay, these two are following each other. They're not kissing each other, so to speak. So one of this is right and one of this is wrong. If one of this is right and one of this is wrong, because you can't have three that are wrong, either both of these are wrong or only one of these are wrong. Obviously just one of these are wrong because they're following each other, which means that one of them has to be in the right configuration. In terms of how you're to know that, I'm going to say that this one was wrong because it's fitting flush with this and it's the wrong side. I already know that these two are right because it's following the same pattern. But the next algorithm, the next application should flip these guys. So this is right. I'm sorry, should flip these guys. This is right. This is right. This is wrong. It's flush with the wrong thing. And this is wrong because it's facing opposite here. So then again, F, R, U, R, I, UI, FI. So now, just by knowing how these algorithms work, it should be right. So this is facing this way, this is facing the opposite, that's good. These are all opposites. And this actually has the form that's correct because this is in flush and none of these are in, which means I just have to apply the algorithm of rotating these edges around by that RU, RIU, R2U, RI. That's what I'm going to do. Now bear in mind, what is your R move? The R move is going to be the one that does not move the front edge. So that's going to be this, because that's not going to move the front edge. So RU, RIU, R2U, RI. And so you see that all the edges are in. So that's how to do it if you see that they all appear to be facing each other, but you're not sure which one is, you're not sure what's out and what's in. So here's another situation, another scenario. So you've solved the first two layers and now you're looking at the top here. The thing to notice is that these two greens are following each other, which means one is in and one is out. You look here, same thing here, the reds are following each other. So in the first scenario, they both weren't, they were facing each other. So for all you knew, either all was out, or two were out, or all were in. Actually, you can kind of tell that they weren't. So now the question is, I know two are in and two are out, which is which? Well, it's hard to say, but we're going to kind of run an experiment and say, well, I'm going to say it's not this one because it's flush with the wrong one. It's hanging out at the wrong side of the train tracks. Same thing with this. So let's say these two are in and these two are out. So what I'm going to do is call this an L formation because they're right next to each other. And so because of that, my F move is going to be the one that does not move the one that's in. So this is going to be my F, this is going to be my R, and this is going to be my U. So F, R, U, RI, UI, and FI. So upon doing that, let's kind of see where we're at. Making the assumption that this was in, this should be our line over here, right? But let's take a look at what we've got here. This is now flush, and this is now flush. These two aren't. So what's the situation here? These two are facing each other, and these two are facing each other. So could it be that they're all in? Well, I don't think so. You take a look and you see that these two are facing each other and these two are facing each other. So which is right and which is wrong? Well, let's say this is flush over here, green with green, so this is right. If this is right, this must be right. It has no choice because it's facing the same way. If this were facing opposite, I'd have to make the assumption that this is wrong. So if this is right, you can say, well, what about here? This red is facing flush, isn't that right? But I will tell you, these two cannot both be right. Because if they are, based on this configuration, you have this in and this in, which you're not going to be able to get. In other words, there's no way to rotate this around to where everything is where they're supposed to be. Everything will be flush, potentially, but the color scheme will be wrong. Because if you do your RU, RIU, and as I've shown, this will stay the same. These are going to rotate and never quite be where they're supposed to be. So this is right, therefore this is right. These two cannot be right. This can't be right because it's not supposed to be flush at the same time as this. If this can't be right, because this is also facing opposite, this also can't be right. If this were facing the other way, then I'd say, oh, this is right. But that would be impossible because then this would be right, this would be right, and this would be right. So I hope that made sense, but if I'm going to define this as being right, this must be right. Which means this must be wrong because you can't have this facing flush here. There's no way to rotate it in sync. If this is wrong, because this is rotated opposite this must also be wrong. Which means these two are right, these two are wrong. We have a line situation. So we're doing our FRU from here, which is right next to where our edge is. So let's see if I'm right. Now you may ask yourself, well, could you just define this as being right? And you could. Then this is right. And this is right, and these two are wrong. So it really doesn't matter. So we'll go like F, R, U, R, I, U, I, F, I. Now I know what I just did should have put it all into position, because after the line, you're good. Now this makes sense, because look, this is flush. Everything else is rotated around, which means they can rotate where they're supposed to be. These two are opposites, and these two are opposites. Let's see if it works. R, U, R, I, U, R, 2U, RI, and there it is. And we're good. All right. Let me know how that works. Let me know if there's any other questions. And again, if there's any other requests, please make them. I'm happy to do them.